The Russian military is clearly not doing well in Ukraine these days and could be on the verge of a major defeat in the area of Kherson. More recently, the Ukrainian artillery and missile barrage has morphed into a ground offensive, documented by military observers and military bloggers. Russian and Ukrainian pushing south along the west bank of the Dnieper and forcing Russian troops to withdraw south and east across the river. The Kherson effort dovetails with an earlier, likely connected offensive hundreds of kilometers to the northeast, where Ukraine stunned Russian forces, recapturing dozens of towns in the Kharkiv region and an important rail hub in the Donetsk region, Lyman. Ukrainian defense forces continue to move the front line despite the fact that the Russian forces have been very firmly entrenched there with their defensive lines. A new map focusing on the southern region of Ukraine shows how Russia is abandoning territory in Kherson as Ukrainian forces move forward. Ukrainian troops coming from Mykolaiv have moved southeast toward Kherson, into areas that Russia has had only limited control over. Meantime, soldiers west of Nikopol have moved south to positions northeast of Kherson. Instead, the enemy continues to run an active defensive operation, trying to hold the occupied lines and exert a fire influence on our troops, employing its air force, jet and barrel artillery, mortars, and tanks to attack Ukrainian positions and adjacent territorial communities. Meanwhile, Ukraine has claimed that Russia has lost 44 tanks and 27 armored personnel carriers in a single day as Kyiv presses forward with counteroffensives on two fronts. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine's Facebook page produced its latest estimates on Tuesday morning. In addition to this, the post says that 2 artillery systems, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, 1 plane, 2 UAVs, and 12 vehicles and fuel tanks were destroyed on Monday. The enemy suffered the greatest losses in total in the Kramatorsk and Bakhmut directions, the post added. Kramatorsk and Bakhmut are in the eastern Donetsk region, where Ukraine has taken ground with 1 counteroffensive, while Kryvyi Rih is in the south, where Ukraine's forces have launched another counteroffensive. Ukraine has also admitted to significant losses of its own. Nearly 9,000 Ukrainian military personnel have been killed in the war with Russia, the head of Ukraine's armed forces said in August, according to Reuters. The latest reported losses come after Russia has admitted it was forced to retreat from the city of Lyman due to the Ukrainian counteroffensive. The Institute for the Study of War told Newsweek that over the weekend the Russian Ministry of Defense, MOD, announced the withdrawal of Russian troops from Lyman to what it called more advantageous positions to avoid the threat of encirclement in the settlement. The think tank explained the details of Ukraine's victories in the region and what this could mean for the war. Ukrainian forces continued to liberate settlements east and northeast of Lyman on October 2nd and have liberated Torsky in Donetsk Oblast. Russian sources claimed that Russian forces withdrew from their positions northeast of Lyman, likely to positions around Kreminna and along the R-66 Svatov-Kreminna highway, the think tank said. The think tank continued, Russian sources are voicing concern that Ukrainian forces are targeting and preparing to cut the critical Svatov-Lyman ground line of communication that was supplying the Russian grouping in Lyman. Russian sources are concerned that the collapse of the Lyman pocket and control over the Svatov-Lyman road will allow Ukrainian forces to essentially wedge into Luhansk Oblast and threaten RU positions along the Kharkiv-Luhansk border, especially near the critical settlements of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Meanwhile, the armed forces of Ukraine are successfully counterattacking the Russian army, which is trying to hold a bridgehead on the right bank of the Dnieper near Kherson. The network has collected a huge number of messages from Ukrainian fighters who post videos from liberated settlements in the Kherson region. We are talking about geolocated videos that can be used to identify a liberated settlement. These include Davidiv Brid, Starosilia, Velika Oleksandrivka, and Novomykolaievka. It should be noted that the information regarding the liberation of these settlements still requires official confirmation of the liberation from the General Staff of the Armed Forces. Previously, it was reported about the liberation of Arkhangelsk and nearby villages, as well as about the successful advance of the armed forces of Ukraine along the Dnieper River to the south along the line Zolotobakhna-Novoalexandrivka-Dutchany. At the same time, Russian accounts on social networks are already using terms such as loss of control of troops by the command of the Russian army. Of course, the Russians blame this on the use by the Ukrainian troops of top-secret NATO radio-electronic warfare complexes, due to which the communication between the Russian units was completely suppressed. Because of this, the Russian units do not know what is happening around them. Also, among users of Russian media, there is a claim that the armed forces of Ukraine have moved to a completely new level of troop management and C2 when even individual platoons know everything about the forces and whereabouts of the enemy thanks to modern intelligence systems and automated troop management systems. The following demonstration video published by the Ground Forces Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is also interesting. This video shows the combat actions of the soldiers of the 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade named after the Knights of the Winter Campaign, which can operate in the Kherson region. In the video, you can see the classic actions of mobile teams on buggies, which is simply an exemplary implementation of the tactics of raiding teams of the British SAS Special Operations Force. It is precisely such actions in the enemy's rear, especially in conditions where it may not have communication, that makes it possible to bring chaos to the enemy's ranks. This tactic makes it possible to reliably cut off the enemy's possibility of reinforcements approaching and transporting ammunition, and destroy artillery positions and communication centers. Such actions also cause the enemy to panic, because the enemy will not understand whether he is already surrounded or not. At the same time, due to the width of the bridgehead of 40 kilometers, most of the enemy's positions are within reach of the Ukrainian artillery, the fire of which, in combination with adjustment by such raiding groups, allows solving a much larger range of tasks. Against this background, the main question will be where exactly the enemy will start building a new line of defense. The fact is that the nearest water obstacle is located some 50 kilometers south of the previous positions of the Russians, the Ingulets River, which turns south in the Snegurivka area. Moreover, the active maneuver of the Russian army forces is hindered by a rather limited number of transport routes that radially depart from Bereslav. In view of all this, we eagerly await new encouraging reports from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.